Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to today's session of Our Region Matters. Now, this is the second of our series of mayoral forums that we're holding throughout the region. My name is David Duplisea, and I'm the CEO of the Saint John Region Chamber of Commerce. I'd first like to thank our sponsors and chamber member, Encore Global, for their tremendous support for this election series. They've helped us and advised us on the technology and the best practices in order to produce this event and move it forward with respect to all safety protocols. Now, I've heard from a lot of stakeholders and members and people from the region, and there's comments that this election is probably one of the most important that we've had in many, many years. And that's not to say that they're not all important, but I do believe that given the financial and the economic situation, as well as the pandemic, and finally, the political and social landscapes that we're all living within, have created a critical situation. It's a perfect storm. And the decisions that these mayors and candidates and councils will be making over the next few years will affect every business and person in our community, and could very well do so for generations. So I want to thank each of the candidates who's offered their candidacy. Thank you, Gary and Libby. Thank you for offering to serve the public. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to speak with us today. As we continue, I have a couple of housekeeping items. First, I ask that you click on the mute button to minimize any background noise. And second, there is an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session if time permits. You simply use the chat function, and the question will come in and I'll see it at my seat. Speaking of questions, over the past few weeks, we've had the opportunity to gather questions and information from a wide number of members, citizens, and other stakeholders, and we've curated all of those questions and comments. Without any editing whatsoever, we've sent each of these questions and concerns to our candidates so that they're well aware of where we will focus. We've done so because we want to be completely open with all the candidates and with all of our members. So again, if you have questions, please submit them via the chat box. Our format this morning will allow for each of our candidates an opportunity to present their vision and plans for the business and economic development and the future of our region. Then be followed by a selection of questions received, and the candidates may then respond. Our two mayoral candidates again running for Quispamsis, Gary Clark and Libby O'Hara. Now I'm going to draw a name as to who will speak first. And the first speaker will be Libby O'Hara. And Libby's bio: Libby was born and raised in the north end of Saint John, attending local schools, and graduated from UNB. Libby and her late husband Paul built a family home in Quispamsis where they raised their children. Libby taught in the Valley for over 30 years. Following an early retirement from teaching, Libby worked at UNB for 2 years before a successful bid at winning a council seat in 2011 during a by-election. Libby's political success was repeated again in 2012 and 2016. Only this time she served both terms plus 1 year as the deputy mayor. In the upcoming election, Libby will run for the position of mayor. She believes her municipality requires a strong voice and leadership to move Quispamsis forward. Libby will work to strengthen relationships with not only the regional partners, but also with provincial and federal levels of government. Libby hopes to provide a strong voice and leadership, giving Quispamsis a direction as we grow forward. So now, Carol is going to come up and is going to clean the podium, and then we'll ask Libby to come up. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you, David, and thank you to the Chamber. Thank you, invited guests and people who are on Zoom or streaming live today with Facebook. It's a pleasure to be here, and certainly a pleasure to represent the people of Quispamsis. So that is my goal. I would like to run for the position of mayor for many reasons, but basically I would like to speak to the experience of leadership and what that means to a community. I have a proven track record of honesty and integrity, and I'm someone who can commit the necessary time. So that's one thing that I would like you to know, is that as your mayor, I would be a full-time mayor. I am an early retired teacher, as David mentioned, and I have the time to commit to all of the duties that I see as being fit for the role of mayor. The task of the mayor is to set the tone for the entire community. And it's also the responsibility of the mayor to give a very progressive tone to their council. And in that way, we can also give guidance to the direction that we want to see Quispamsis take. So I think certainly leadership is important. So I'd like to speak to you about moving forward, about my leadership, about post-COVID-19, and about my vision for Quispamsis. In 2019, Quispamsis developed a municipal plan. And I think one of the key priorities at this point in time is for us to have a strategic plan. That was on the table last year, and of course it got kiboshed with, or at least set back because of COVID. But now is the time that we need to align the strategies that we have within the municipal plan and to take a strong foothold. We've got to go lockstep and align these plans, our strategic plan and our municipal plan, so that we set the course for Quispamsis. And a 5 to 10 year out strategic plan is much needed for our infrastructure. We're a community right now in Quispamsis of over 18,000 people. In the first quarter of this year, we have surpassed any of our housing starts in history. That's a significant idea that we are growing in Quispamsis. In the year of 2020, we had the highest housing starts in history up to that point. So what that meant was, even though we were under the influence of COVID and we were struggling in many ways with our personal lives and trying to stay as safely as possible, our building and our construction sector was very, very strong. And what that means for our community is growth. And I think that's an important issue for the community at large as well. So when I look at regional development, we ask ourselves, what is important as we develop as a region? And I think we have to bear in mind that to grow, we need to look at what it takes to grow. So we have sectors within our region where we don't have enough skilled workers. So how do we overcome that? Well, I would like to sit at the table with our provincial counterparts, with our federal counterparts, and like to say, what can we do together? So if Quispamsis currently has a housing stock of single-family dwellings, we're now on the marketplace where apartment buildings are shooting up. And that's very important to us. It gives a little bit of diversity to the housing stock that we have. So in dealing with the provincial level of government and the federal level of government, I would like to sit down with the Premier and say, why don't we have a strategy in place for education and training and housing? Bring people in from across Canada that has the skill set, or bring people in from across the world that have the skill sets that we need in order to grow this region. The caveat to that would be that we would want these people to stay for a minimum of 3 years. When you go someplace for 3 years, you're either going to love it or hate it. Out in Quispamsis, I can guarantee you they're going to love it. That's just a very personal take on that, but who doesn't love Quispamsis? We have, come through a period of time with COVID, and the next 12 months are going to be extremely important. We're going to have to restart and rejuvenate and rebuild our community with the strength from the people that we have there, as well as with the workforce. As I stand here today, there are 3 new commercial buildings being built in Quispamsis. So we've got a housing start in Quispamsis that is bigger than what it's ever been. We've got commercial buildings going up. We need to tie those things together, and we need to let our residents know that we are growing and that we are going to accommodate that growth. Certainly if these trends continue, and there's no reason to believe that they're not going to continue, we need to be prepared. You have to plan your work and work your plan. And we're doing that out in Quispamsis. We have the leadership of a very strong workforce. We have a CAO and work staff that have been working diligently through COVID to keep our residents safe, to keep our staff safe. And I think they've been very successful with that, and I certainly applaud them for the hard work that they've been doing. With leadership, I think that it's the mayor's ability to cooperate and collaborate with fellow councillors, with municipal management and staff, as well as being readily available to community and residents. And we need to align those understandings with what the expectation is of a leader and of a mayor. Coming into this election, it's very important to understand that we have 3 incumbents who are returning, and if they're successful, that means that we will still have over half of our council who will be new. So it will be incumbent upon the mayor to be able to spend time assisting councillors to navigate the municipal system, to provide guidance and direction regarding municipal and provincial protocols, and to understand the nuances of town council and the responsibility that goes there within. Leadership has to be strong and unwavering. A mayor is uniquely positioned to empower himself or herself by ensuring that the honesty and integrity of the office is upheld, by providing leadership opportunities to other council members, by drawing and focusing on key priorities, by communicating programs and activities and accomplishments of the municipality to the media and to the public, and by amplifying individuals and organizations in the community, bringing together diverse groups to tackle community issues and more. Essentially, a mayor is faced with numerous expectations on a regular basis, and the incumbent must be ready to present themselves in the best light and with the best intentions at all times. The mayor is the face and the voice of the community. With infrastructure within Quispamsis, we are continually investing in infrastructure in Quispamsis. We want to see the water come down I guess it's the Pettingill Road and the Hampton Road, and we want to see that actually add to the value of our residents and the luxury of having homes within the town of Quispamsis. Also, I'd like to say that we have coming out of COVID, what COVID has taught us is the value of family, the importance of relationship. And when we look at what COVID has brought us, we see that our outside trails are being used phenomenally at higher rates than they've ever been used before. So when we put money into our amenities, that gives value to the people who are living there. It also gives them the provision that, COVID has been a horrible, horrible thing for our community, for the world. But we have provided for our residents an avenue for them to go out and to experience nature and in a very safe way. So with the Menands Cove Beach House, that's another part of our infrastructure. Over the years, 2018, 2019, we had some horrific floods in our area. We were able to mitigate the floods from hitting our Menands Cove Beach House. And that's one of our crown jewels in the community, along with the Qplex, along with the Arts and Culture Center. But we worked really hard. We had to put manpower out to actually hold the waters back. And they were able to do that to a degree, but they were overwhelming by times. So recently what we did, most of council decided that this is the time to put in a breakwater, to put a berm in that's going to hold those waters back. We invest in our community, and we invest in our community so that our residents have the comfort of living in a safe environment. We have fire and police that we share with a neighboring community, and we ensure that they are always on the ready and that they have the funds that are necessary in order to protect our residents. In 2017, Quispamsis was chosen in Atlantic Canada by Money Sense as the #1 community to live in Atlantic Canada. And this year, and I can't remember who did the study, but out of 10 communities that were chosen across Canada, we were chosen, or we were placed 4th for the community to work at from home. So those are our distinctions. And Quispamsis is distinguished among the rest. There is no other, as our tagline says. And I'll leave it at that at this time. And I know that there'll be some Q&A time after this. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Libby. Our next speaker will be Gary Clark, and Gary has served his first term as mayor of Quispamsis. He previously served 2 terms on council. During his term as mayor, Gary was committed to encouraging, as part of the new municipal plan review, new development with minimal environmental impact, including affordable seniors housing. He's an advocate of responsible growth in sports and recreational facilities and programs in our community to improve the quality of life for its citizens. Gary continues to prioritize capital streets and municipal infrastructure projects and will continue to be diligent in using tax dollars to best serve the residents of Quispamsis. Gary's community involvement involves serving as chairman on the Kennebecasis Regional Joint Board of Police Commissioners and Pro Kids. He's also served as past chairman of the local church parish council, a past member of the board of directors with Big Brothers Big Sisters, recipient of the Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department Volunteer of the Year Award, active in community sports and recreation, and has served on Committee for Relay of Life for 5 years. Gary served on the Qplex Building Committee, the Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department's Board of Directors, Harbor Station, the Trade and Convention Center, and was chair of the Quispamsis New Brunswick Day Host Committee. Gary also served 2 terms as lay representative for the Pharmaceutical Society of New Brunswick. So I'll pass this over to Gary as soon as Carol is done cleaning the station.
Good morning, everyone. Chamber of Commerce, David, thank you for having me here this morning to speak with everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And I guess I'd just like to start by, just welcoming everybody this morning. So, as David has said, I've been a member of many of the boards as the councillor. I started as a councillor in 2008, was elected the only new councillor in 2008, served 1 term, re-offered for a 2nd term, was a councillor again, and then offered to run for mayor and was successful, and I've served 1 term as mayor 5 years. Certainly it's been a challenging year and a half with COVID, and our staff have been doing a fabulous job and council on dealing with the COVID issues in the region. Some of the boards that I have served on as chair of the Fire Board, the chair of the Police Commission, Harbor Station, Trade and Convention Center, chaired Pro Kids, just to name a few over the past 13 years. I am a small business owner in the Valley, and certainly have the time as a small business owner in the Valley to continue my mayoralty role for the next 4 years as mayor. With my experience as mayor and leading the team, and looking forward to working with a new team and a few new candidates that will be fulfilling those roles. Certainly over 2018, 2019, where we had the flooding in the town, I was there. I was committed. I was out with the people, and certainly worked with and for the people and staff who did a fabulous job with the flooding. And I will be there for the people again for the next 4 years. Some of the things that I think we should be certainly looking at and dealing with over the next 4 years is finding some synergies with our neighboring communities, such as roads, garbage collection. I think we should be looking at some of these things together, where we can find some synergies to work as a team to maybe lower some costs, and possibly tendering out some of these things together as a whole. One other issue that I think that we need to deal with is certainly recreation. We all, like I've said over the number of years, we all don't need recreation in our backyards, facilities that is, and I believe that we should be working with our neighboring communities and the City of Saint John under recreation to find things that we can work together with. we have the wonderful Qplex that we built that I was on the building committee for that serves the community very well. But I think that, there are other facilities. We know that the City of Saint John has had some issues with the arenas. I believe that we should be working as one under an umbrella with recreation to move forward together. I believe, like I said, we don't need it all, everything in our own backyards. We certainly can work together on finding some ways to work as a team in all municipalities. Over the past 5 years, I've worked with all the other mayors. We've worked very well together, and as chair of the Regional Service Commission at Crane Mountain, I've gained some experience there and worked with all of the other areas, leading the force there on the plastic bag ban and going to paper. Those are some of the things that we've worked on. One of the other things that I'm very proud of over the last 5 years is the debt ratio, and we've lowered the debt ratio in the town, which was very important to me. The other issues were on my mantra when I ran for mayor was roads, 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 and I believe that we have been very successful on increasing our road paving infrastructure over the last 5 years, and want to continue to do that. I think that is extremely important. Along with water, we have extended our municipal water down the Hampton Road and want to continue to bring that down further down the Hampton Road in other areas where water is very important. That being said, we've also been able to build other diverse living accommodations, and affordable housing is on the radar, but definitely with apartment buildings being built, water was extremely important. We've done that, and we want to continue to do more roads and more water in the area. Another issue that we've been focusing on that I think needs more work is the unconditional grants. I've been working in the town with the province, trying to understand the formula for unconditional grants. Years from the past, Quispamsis has almost received $1 million a year in unconditional grants. Over the last few years, we've been cut to merely $100,000. We do not understand why, and I've been trying to work with the province, sending letters on behalf to the Premier, and yet no success there. So I really feel that this needs to be worked on further, and our sister town, Rossi and Riverview, Rossi in particular is receiving the same amount. However, Riverview, they're receiving over, I think it's $2 million a year to put into a reserve fund, which is it's unbelievable. So we really have to focus on why this formula is done this way. I feel that Quispamsis has certainly been penalized by having a lower tax rate. It's the only thing I can figure. So we really need to work strongly with the province to figure this out and get it straight. And we're not asking for more money necessarily in Quispamsis, but to be fair across the whole province. There's other municipalities in this province that are being treated the same way, and we need to look at that. Some of the other areas that we need to work on is regional cooperation. I'm very excited with the new identity in Saint John, and we need to work with that group. And Quispamsis is happy to invest more money to bring that forward. So I'm very optimistic and hopeful that we can achieve some of those goals together. Some of the other things that we've been very fortunate to have in the town of Quispamsis is our trail system. Thanks to our staff and council, we have increased our trails throughout the town to make it safer for people to walk and get to communities. We built the Qplex with our trail system in mind, so people can get to the Qplex and safer and stay off the roads. So I'm been very pleased with the trail system and what we've done there. The other reason I decided to run for mayor is the recent increase in the 28% that this past council has given for the new council at 28% in this time. I'm sorry, but it's drastically too high. I believe I have the time to commit and think that my salary as it is right now is very fair. When I look at other municipalities the same size, making considerably less than what I'm making now. So I unfortunately do not have a vote, but I have committed, if re-elected on May the 10th, that I will be donating the difference after taxes to the KV food basket. So that's everything for now. I will wait for the question and answers, and I just want to thank everyone for your time, and thank you, David.
Libby and Gary, we've heard a number of things, and some of the things that came to mind in terms of the questions that are coming. I've heard Libby mention an alignment of skill sets with population growth, and we know that's a big issue in our region, and working the plan and planning to work. We've heard from Gary about the synergies created in regionalization in things like roads, garbage collection, and recreation. So there's a number of topics here that are top of mind with our members. So the first thing that I'm going to ask is, if you could identify the top 2 issues that you wish to work on and will work on as first. What are the 2 most critical points that you would start with on day 1? And I'll start with you, Libby.
Thank you, David. Good question. I would certainly make sure that we get off the ground running with a strategic plan. I feel that that is important in order to steer the ship as to where Quispamsis is headed. And having a view into the future is very important. We can't predict the future. We can't do anything about the past. And, you know, I always say that when we hold on to the past, we're holding on to things that are obsolete and no longer relevant. We need to work in today. We need to push forward, and having a strategic plan that aligns with the other plans within the town, whether it's the municipal plan, we will have a path forward, and that's extremely important. The other thing that I would work with would be the collaboration with the rest of the region. I look forward to working with Develop Saint John, with Envision Saint John, and all of the pillars that come under that heading. I think it's extremely important that we have a relationship that will take us forward as a region. We've worked too long in silos. We've not gotten anywhere. You know, we need to think more in terms of the greater community. And by doing that, we're working together. We can create a plan that will move the entire region and make us all richer as a result of that. We have the skill sets with people here. You know, certainly in moving forward, it's going to draw more people to us. And when I say to enrich Quispamsis, when we can enrich the entire region, we will all benefit from it. So those would be 2 things, David, would be the strategic plan for Quispamsis and also working collaboratively with the region.
Great. Gary, over to you. What are your thoughts on the first 2 things that you would start day 1?
Thank you, David. I too believe my number 1 issue is regional cooperation and collaboration, you know, with our outlying areas and particularly the city of Saint John. I've said over the past number of years as mayor that if Saint John grows and flourishes, Quispamsis and the outlying areas will grow and flourish as well residentially. So I believe that, and I've said that over the number of years, that we need to get Saint John, we need to help Saint John. We're going to invest more money with Saint John over the next number of years, which I'm very excited about, to grow Saint John and to bring people to, and we're seeing this now, unfortunately, with COVID and the pandemic. I'm talking to a number of people every day moving here from Toronto and Colorado, California. They're coming here. They're moving to the area, which is great to see. So we need to keep them here. It's very important that people stay here, enjoy it here. So if Saint John grows and flourishes, we certainly will residentially, and that's very important to me.
Perfect. Now, speaking of growth, we know that the region needs about 2,000 people a year in order to grow, and that's a pretty hefty number. And we'd have to have a lot of things in place in order to accommodate 2,000 people. We just don't bring them here. So knowing that there's some municipal reforms that are necessary, we need the provincial government to deliver on some of its promises of tax reform. So given all of that, what do you think 2030 would look like if we treated the whole region as one? What would 2030 look like in your minds? And I'll give you just a couple seconds because that's a pretty big question. What does 2030 look like to you? And I'll start with you, Libby.
Okay, thank you, David. 2030, in looking forward, if we continue to trend the way that Quispamsis is trending, and I'm hoping that that trickles out to the community at large and to the region at large, then we will meet those targets. But we have to work collaboratively. We have to work with our levels of government. This is not something that is simply a regional exercise. This is something that we need to work with the province, and we need to work with the federal level of government as well. And we can do that. What we have to do is, again, set a plan. What are our goals? How are we going to go about this? We have people calling in Quispamsis on a daily, regular basis, asking for housing stock. So we know that the people are interested in coming here from across Canada, from across the world, but we have to be prepared for that. So we have to start planting the seeds now with the ideas of how we're going to move forward. We also have to make sure that the housing stock is available, and that is something that is tight right now. And there's movement here within the city, there's movement in Quispamsis, and we are heading in that direction. So as far as what's it going to look like in 2030, I think we're going to be that bustling town here in the Saint John Harbor with the waterfront development and so forth, and it is going to be a destination place. It's going to be a mecca that's going to attract people because of all that it has to offer. And we will be a workforce that will be strong, and it will certainly inject the economy in this area. When we bring people in at $2,000 a year, it's going to be bustling, and we will be proud of that. But we've got to do the hard work first. We have to roll up our sleeves, and we've got to be a part of that attraction. And I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to work with Envision. I'm willing to work with all of the partners in order to make sure that this happens.
Thank you, Libby. Over to you, Gary. What do you think 2030 is going to look like?
Thank you, David. 2030, just to give you an example, over the last number of years prior to COVID, I would meet with our MP in my office, and she would bring students in, university students that were graduating from university. And in particular, I'll never forget this, but she asked the question, you're graduating this year, and yes, they are, and so on. And then I said, out of all of you here, how many of you are planning on staying in New Brunswick? Not one hand went up. And I asked the question why, and they said it's because there's no work here. So it's really sad, and many of my nieces and nephews have left to find employment elsewhere in their trades. So it's very important that we work with the province and the provincial government, the federal government, and with Envision Saint John to keep them here. It's fine that people are moving here from the outlying areas, like I said. A lot of them are retired people, but we need to keep the young people here. And in order to do that, we need to work with the other levels of government to keep them here, in 2013. So I certainly see a promising future here, but we certainly have to work with the governments to keep the students here.
Yep. A very, very good point that both of you have raised, and it obviously takes us down a couple of different directions, views on amalgamation, whether infrastructure would be able to support that kind of growth too. So the first question I'll ask after that is, and you mentioned housing shortages as well. I know that housing for seniors can be an issue, and we have people looking to move to the Valley for that. What is your thoughts on the housing supply? Do you have a housing issue? Is there enough house for the seniors? And just even rentals as the dynamic of the makeup of your home ownership versus renting changes as people come into that region. What are your thoughts on addressing any kind of a housing shortage that you have or may have in the future? And I guess I started with Libby the last time, so I'll start with you this first time, Gary.
Thank you, David. Housing shortage certainly is an issue right now. As Libby has said, we know that. I speak to real estate agents every day, and it is an issue. But so is affordable housing. And we have worked very hard in the town over the number of years, like I said, to bring water, more municipal water to the area so that we can have these developments. And moving forward, I think it's extremely important to work with staff and our council to develop more affordable housing in the town, so that we know that transportation is an issue, and we want to be able to keep people in Quispamsis in the valley. So we definitely have to continue to work on affordable housing and senior housing in the Kennebecasis Valley area.
Thank you. Over to you, Libby.
Thank you. Certainly our housing stock is changing at this juncture. We have apartment buildings going up now, which is new to Quispamsis. We've had a couple of apartment buildings that are older stock at this point in time, but the need was there. The developers have looked to see, what are the needs, what is the demographic that wants to move into apartment-style living. So some of those needs are being answered at this point in time. Over the past year, I've spoken to a minimum of 6 developers who are interested in working with the town on developing housing stock at various levels. So that's something that is on the books right now, and something that I will certainly have on my plate when I become mayor.
Now, along with the growth that comes with that, and the changes in the dynamics of the housing stock, comes a need for infrastructure. Now, we've heard there's some challenges with some of the infrastructure getting to those areas, whether it be water, sewers, and even the transportation, and how those plans all come together. What do you see as some of the infrastructure challenges from your region that could serve as immediate barriers to moving forward with a plan to address the housing issue as well as the infrastructure issues? So who did I start with last time? Yeah, started with you last time? Okay, I'll start with you this time, Libby.
Okay, thank you. Certainly, we are constantly looking at our infrastructure. And again, here's where the strategic plan comes in, and it's so important. We've just completed an asset management plan. We have our municipal plan. So now we've got to look to say, okay, how are we going to best serve the residents of this community, of a growing community? And when we look at Quispamsis, unlike other communities in the area, we're growing at leaps and bounds. So for infrastructure, we are moving the availability of water within the community, within the more densely populated area. We're also working on waste management. We're putting over $7 million into what has become somewhat antiquated wastewater management systems, and so we are looking at those, and we're hoping that when we put this effort and money into upgrades and new systems, that this is going to carry us through. So we've got to project to the future too. What is the lifespan? That will come under asset management. When we put these things in place, then we look at the history of these facilities to see how long they're going to take us forward. So as we grow, that certainly has to be a key. And certainly when we're building apartment buildings or working with developers, will we be putting those where there is town water supplied, where there is sewage supplied? That eases some of the strain on the developer. It eases some of the strain on the aquifers within our community. So those are issues, David, that yes, they are of concern. Our engineering department is on top of those, and we've been able to grow successfully because we have been looking to the future with each segment of growth.
Great. Gary, your thoughts on aligning, shall we say, population growth, housing, and infrastructure?
Thank you. Very good question. We work very closely with our Department of Engineering. Infrastructure is extremely important. We've been very blessed and fortunate to have a great infrastructure system in place right now because we are a younger community. However, we are working on the future. We are having more frequent, where they were 100-year storms, more frequent now. So we are having issues with flooding and some water runoff. So I think it's extremely important that when we build these developments and these subdivisions with the developers and our engineering department, that we do it the right way. Water runs downhill, as we know, and when we're clear cutting, we're ending up with residents with flooding issues. So I think it's extremely important that we do it right. We do it right the first time, especially when it's taxpayers' money. So we have to make sure that we plan very well. I've been a huge proponent of all of these new developments that have happened in the town, and bringing water to those areas so that they have municipal water and not well, to protect the aquifer and make sure that the residents in the area are okay with their water supply that they have now. So that's extremely important, and I think we need to continue to work on infrastructure and make sure that we do it right the first time.
Now, moving on to another topic, we're fortunate that we have an airport in our region. We have, one sitting right next door to your facility or to your community. We know that airports in southwestern New Brunswick, they generate close to $700 million in revenue for the three urban areas. Now, as we move forward, we know that there's a lot of conversation over the concept of a single airport, where that would go, how would that affect our communities? And that's a discussion that's a long term out. And we know that if you look at the business case, you could always find a business case for a single airport rather than three. But given the fact that there's existing infrastructures in three airports already in southwestern New Brunswick, and there is over $700 million combined economic activity from having those three regional airports, what are your thoughts on if, in fact, government moves forward towards discussions, and we know they're happening already, towards a single airport? So I'm going to start with you, Gary. What are your thoughts on single airport, and what do you think would happen if the Valley lost the Saint John Airport?
Thank you, David. Well, this has certainly been a touchy subject. Obviously, we know that the airport helps the greater Saint John area bring business people to the area. We know it's a convenience. It's very positive. It was great to see the expansion and things happen at the airport. However, moving forward, I certainly would be willing to talk with the province and work with the provincial government in trying to keep the Saint John Airport here. I know many years ago I had heard that the airport was actually, the central airport was going to be in Sussex, which would have worked for the whole province. I know in other provinces people have to drive an hour or 2 hours to an airport. We've been very fortunate here to have an airport in our backyard. So I'm certainly willing to work with the province on trying to keep this airport here and making it viable in the future.
Now, very good points. And just as a comment on that, I know that some of the infrastructure investments already in airports, such as Moncton, the airport in Moncton. So the idea that it would be located in Sussex is no longer prevalent anymore. And in fact, it could actually go to one of the other areas that already has the largest investment in their infrastructure. So what are your thoughts, Libby, on keeping the airport in Saint John?
I think it goes without saying that the importance of the airport is just so critical to our province. And we need to create a resilient and financially viable province. And we need to make sure that this region is strong. So when we look at the importance of an airport, David, people will drive to Boston or they'll drive to Bangor for a cheaper flight. We need to make sure that our airport stays here within this province. If it is more viable to have this airport outside of the city of Saint John, then we've got to sit at the table and we've got to have that very, very difficult and challenging discussion. If it makes more sense to have smaller airports, such as we have right now, they're not international, at least Saint John is not an international airport. We need to have connection to the rest of the world. Our airport right now, perhaps it's going to be that connector flight that's going to get us to Toronto, that's going to take us to Montreal or to points south of the border. So we need to be open to discussion. We need to do what is best for the region. And this is where the critical turning point is. For so long, we've lived, as I said before, in silos where we wanted to develop our own little area. Those days are past. I said it before. We can't live in the in the past that is now obsolete and no longer relevant. I can't say that enough, because it's so important that we think with a vision and we look forward and we move forward.
Now, we've talked a lot about not accepting status quo, and the old has to go and in with the new. So that leads me to the next question, because you've both discussed a number of topics that could be regionalized and things like that. So that is an elephant in the room in our whole region is, what are your thoughts on amalgamation versus regionalization? What are some of the areas that we could leverage, all of our neighbors and our communities perhaps, starting with regionalization, because amalgamation tends to be a bad word. But we know that we need to work together somehow. What are your thoughts on regionalization and removing some of those silos and those barriers so that we do move forward?
Certainly that is a hot topic, David. And, we can look at regionalization and say, how can we get a better bang for our buck? So what does that mean? In Quispamsis and Rothesay, we currently share a library, we share the police department, we share the fire department. What would that look like if we stretch that over a greater region? So, that's one area. And I'll kind of look at the word amalgamation for what it's worth. At this point in time, I don't think amalgamation is on the table. I don't want to see it on the table. I want to see, right at this point in time, what we can do on a regional basis. I think we have a lot to offer one another. If we put one umbrella over the entire region, I think we're going to miss out on some of the nuances that every community has to offer. And we can't lose sight of that. We can't lose sight of the uniqueness of Saint John, the uniqueness of GBW or Rothesay or Quispamsis. So that is what's going to make us strong. Our differences are going to draw us together. And I really feel that this region will pull through, that we'll come out the other side, we will be stronger. Regionalization is going to be certainly a shot in the arm for us.
Absolutely. Gary, over to you.
Thank you, David. Great question. I too am opposed and not supportive of amalgamation with Saint John. However, I've said all along that I believe that the regionalization with cooperation with Saint John, the greater Saint John area, is far more important. I think we can find ways, like I said earlier, to find some synergy, to work together. I think, for me, recreation is number one. I think we should really be focusing more on recreation and as a whole greater Saint John area. If we, like I said many times, if we had built a facility perhaps out on the arterial to the airport with fourplex and a larger facility, then Hampton, Saint John, Rothesay, Grand Bay Westfield, and Quispamsis and St. Martin's, perhaps we could have all gone it together and built one major facility. And then what I would find when we built the Qplex is that corporations would have maybe given more in donation and support to a larger facility than one. Quispamsis has supported the Saint John Fieldhouse, and I'm proud that we have done that. But again, like I said, there's more regional cooperation that could happen with Saint John and the greater lying areas. Worked very closely with the other mayors of the other areas, and we're all on board. Garbage, road tenders. I think we could start there as well, even with our neighbors from Rothesay. If we find the larger numbers of customers, we can certainly tender a larger area, and we can find some synergies. So I believe that recreation, we should start there, garbage, roads, and some of the other things to work together to find some synergy and cooperation.
We've long advocated for a regionalization model on the areas that you've articulated, whether it be garbage collection, recreation, and things like that. Given the momentum that is happening on and around those files, how would you continue with that momentum? Would you insist we sit down at the table again, we bring the RDC in, we find where's the gaps, How are you planning to continue with the momentum on any kind of a regionalization that's happening? So I'll start with you, Libby.
Okay. You know, again, David, it comes to a meeting of the minds. We have to sit at the table. What didn't work in the past? What are we looking at right now? What is working? You know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we do something. We can look at best practices in other areas. We can incorporate those, adopt new ones, create new ones, and move forward from there. Do some pilot programs. Try it for a year. Try it for 6 months. Whatever it might be. Move forward from where we are. I really feel that there is value in coming to the table with people that have the right mindset, the right skill set to bring their knowledge and experiences with them so that they can share them with us. And just call on the people that have what we need in order to move forward. So again, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's doing the right thing. And that's what we have to, that's where we have to start from. What is going to be the best thing to move us forward? It just sounds so simple that we just have to sit at the table and we have to be civil to one another.
Yeah. Over to you, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With the new organization and Vision Saint John and businesses and local community members, certainly we can work together and ask their input and get the communities involved. But let's be clear that the former mayors, myself included, with the outlying areas, we have been working very closely together. We talk on a regular basis about this topic and how important it is. So I want to continue doing that with the mayors on the outlying areas, and I'm very optimistic and look forward to working with a new mayor in Saint John so that we can all work together, because all of the outlying mayors have this envision, have this site on our radar, and want to work and want to continue to do that together.
We, as a chamber, as I said, a regional chamber that incorporates the entire area, have long advocated for regionalization on these services. So, you know, moving forward, we offer our help and our assistance as a chamber to help to perhaps find the business case, find the opportunities for maybe finding the baby steps for moving forward. So now we're moving on to the part of the program where we'll accept questions coming from the viewers, and we do have one already that's come in, and I've summarized it because it was quite long, but this is the essence of the question, and this is almost the exact word, and we're getting a little bit down into the weeds here first. So, WASH 66 has been an issue, specifically not allowing the owner to no longer haul water to the site after getting the engineering report. Please explain. So that's the question, and I will start with you, Gary, first.
Certainly, we want to talk about a topic. WASH 66 has been an ongoing issue in the town where WASH 66 isn't hooked up or connected to municipal water. Certainly, myself and council have done their due diligence and working with the town staff on this folder over the number of years. You know, I am certainly a proponent of businesses, obviously myself included, being one, in the town of Quispamsis, making sure that everything is covered, that everything is safe, and that there is enough water. The studies were done. The proof was there that there was ample supply of water for WASH 66, sorry, and with the work and the help of our great staff and our engineering department, you know, their recommendation was, and we proceeded to fulfill that. So I'm certainly a proponent of businesses in the Quispamsis and in the valley, small businesses, and I think we need to work with them and support and help them along the way. So as long as everything's covered and the recommendations are there from staff and all their studies have proven that there is enough water for a business to operate, then I certainly go along with the recommendations. They're the professionals to make those decisions. So I support the businesses in the valley.
Your thoughts, Libby?
Yeah, Thank you for the question.
Little
Quite
contentious issue, but
yeah, well, it certainly wasn't. It must have been a late coming question.
yeah,
because,
it came in online,
it wasn't
yeah.
on the list that
Yeah.
you sent Sunday night. Yeah, just to go back to what the mayor had said in his opening statements about supporting development with minimal environmental impact, I think were his words, and certainly during this time of climate change and so forth, protecting the environment is important. Protecting our water source is important. And yes, when the studies were done that the WASH 66 was given the okay to move forward, I agreed to that in my vote on the condition that water was imported, because that's in a residential area. And as has been pointed out, it's on well water. That entire area is on well water. So yes, there's enough water there to sustain the residential area. But when you have a business that continually pumps out 50,000 liters of drinking water a day, 50,000, that's a lot of water. So when the developer was given the approval to move forward, it was on the condition, and it's in the developer's agreement, that water be trucked in. I was fine with that. So water was coming in from another source. It wasn't coming from that particular aquifer that fed those homes. When the developer decided that no longer would water be imported, in my opinion, that was when there was a break in the developer's agreement. Moving forward, council did pass that yes, we will allow him to hook up to the water system, to his well system. I voted against it then. I would vote against it now. The study showed that there is enough water in those aquifers for residential use. I don't know if 50,000 liters a day, which I think, David, and I stand corrected on this, I believe that would be about the equivalent of 17 homes.
is that per day?
Per day. Yeah.
I hate to end on a negative topic like that, but that question did come in twice. So we have to ask it. We are just hitting the 1 hour mark, so we are running out of time. I want to thank you both. Thank you, Gary, so much for coming, and thank you, Libby. Always a pleasure to see the both of you. We know that the decision to run is not an easy one. You take grief from all over on everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's your fault. And I know that it takes a toll personally on people as well as professionally. So I personally want to thank you for coming and putting your name on the slate and running. So on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce in our region, thank you so much to Libby O'Hara and Gary Clark, and I wish you both the best of luck.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
David.
much.
Thank you,
David.
and thank you to our viewers that have tuned in. I understand that we had close to 70 people on this one with our combined numbers on Facebook Live as well as registration. So thank you to you as well.